Hello and welcome to SEO Collective. We are all the way here in November. Can you believe it? It's been 11 months. Oh my gosh. But we are here nearly at the end of the year. And of course, today is very special. I feel like every SEO Collective is special. But for me personally, I have two of my personal heroes. Sorry, three. Saijo, you're still a strong hero of mine.
I was starting to cry there, but good say.
What happened? I'll also extend the shout out to Peter Mead. He couldn't be here because he's just handling some things with family, but we love you, guy, and a massive shout out to you. But of course, we are here with the amazing, the wonderful Suganthan Mohanadasan and Andy Chadwick. Woo!
Also, I'm so impressed at how you pronounce Suganthan's surname. I can't do that.
Yeah, you did that flawlessly.
Yeah,
Oh,
that was
thank
amazing.
First time I've ever seen.
Fake it till you make it, guys. I was like sounding it out, just being very, very mindful. Also too, because you're an absolute legend. You're an absolute dynamo gun on Twitter. To be honest, all three of you guys are. And you personally have actually been really awesome and helped me out at a few times. So it was something that I really wanted to make sure I got right because you're an absolute legend, dude. So I'm so stoked to have you here.
Thank you. Nice to
and
be
of
here.
course, this is an international one. So I'll start from the Brady Bunch left pane or right pane. I don't know left and rights in this situation, but Suganthan, what time is it there? Where are you calling in from?
I'm calling from the southern part of Norway, and it's 8 in the morning.
Wow! Oh my gosh! And how about you, Andy?
I'm calling from London, and it's 2 minutes past 7 in the morning. I was very specific with that. It's 7 in the morning. I don't know why I was so specific. Yeah, 7 in the morning.
Oh my gosh. Awesome.
It's good to have you guys here, and thanks for taking the time, especially early in the morning and, coming out and doing this with us. So we really appreciate it.
100%.
I'm excited. And also, I've always wanted to speak. I mean, I'm speaking to you, Saijo, but Nick, I've always wanted to have a chat. I mean, I love what you tweet. I love it. So, yeah.
my little it's usually from the hours of 11 p.m. to 4 a.m. I'm just on Twitter, just That's literally if you've ever read any one of my tweets, just imagine me up dark room in a dark room with a laptop, just tweeting away. It's kind of mad. So maybe that might change things for the context of reading them. But yeah, honestly, guys, it's such an awesome honor to have both of you here on the YouTube channels. And guys, if you are new here, I'll just do a very, very short plug. If you are on Twitter, if you're on LinkedIn, please go and find both of these two lovely gentlemen and follow them because, on Twitter, there's a lot of noise, but whenever they tweet, it's always really, really well thought out and really interesting information. So, they're definitely ones to watch and learn a lot from. So definitely find their Twitters. And of course, with Saijo as well, please find the Twitters. It's all linked in the description below. And if you are new here, welcome to SEO Collective. Please please subscribe, hit the notification bell because it all helps. And, we're just here to have fun.
Nailed it, You've got that down so well now.
I know, after what, a year? Oh, it's awesome. So, of course, shall we break into the SEO news, the things that have happened this past month, in the month of October? I will divert to you, Saijo.
Sure. So, you guys know the drill, so we'll kind of jump straight in and kind of go through some of the new things that have come out and some of the industry news. So one thing that came out was Google Adwords. Now they have a new column. I think a couple of months ago, they introduced a column which gives you the 3 months trend. Now they have a year-on-year kind of, a percentage that they kind of give. So when you pull up the keyword planner, you get your keyword, the search volume, the trend, the past 3 months. and the past year, like what sort of growth that keyword has. So you don't have to kind of, merge it with Google Trends and all that. You get all that from that UI. So that's kind of nice. So I'm not sure if it's kind of rolled out to everyone, but like a few people started seeing this and started tweeting about it. So that's worth checking out. I'm guessing what was that?
I just said 100%.
Oh. Yeah.
So it was just 2 days ago that people started tweeting it out. So it might be like a slow rollout. It might take a bit of time before everybody starts seeing it. But I think like that it's a change that is kind of coming out to everyone, because they did a 3-month thing like a few months ago. So this again sounds like something that will kind of roll out to everyone.
Yeah,
and I think it's quite nice. Like that's something that you would probably want to check, by pulling out the data and like adding Google Trends data to it. So this one makes it a lot easier.
Sick.
Yeah. I'm guessing a lot of you would have heard about like Google My Business kind of being phased out and the Google Business Profile thing kind of going on. So
I've seen the memes.
So one thing that when usually there's a big rebrand, there is something else that goes on. Like I always think that, which might not be advertised that well, but that kind of happens. So a couple of days ago, I think it was Joy Hawkins who tweeted out saying the Google My Business support email stopped working.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if it's just a part of the rebrand where there was some naive server issues and it stopped working, or is it being completely phased out and there won't be like a support email for that. So Google, they're not great with support, except maybe for their hardware. Google Pixel support was kind of good when I had those devices, but other than that, Google support is usually this is a public forum, go there and somebody might answer it. That's
it's literally half the reason where I've just moved into. I can see Google's office. It's literally there. So
oh wow!
I'm waiting for the time where they can piss me off when we go knock on the door, which is any time.
It's like they're just like working. They're just working away or something.
Every time Andy's new content,
Andy,
new content doesn't get indexed and Andy get mad.
Oi!
Fuming. Look up this random bold bloke banging on the door.
What, doesn't work? Data losses again? Come on, guys.
I think what Google's doing is they're trying to automate as much as possible. I think that's their kind of play now.
That's always been their play, though, right?
I know, but they just double,
next level.
They're taking the next level now. Just everything is automated. I mean, one thing we saw some of the clients, the reviews on the My Business, not My Business page anymore, but all the reviews, there's filtering and everything is completely algorithmic now. So I've seen clients that have legitimate reviews removed. I mean, literally client removed because the algorithm thought it was a fake review. They're automating everything now.
Yeah, and so with this, there's no 100% if that support email is just broken, but I have a feeling that might kind of be going away. But again, too early to say. But that's something.
They did say with the change as well, you can claim and verify your Google Business Profile directly in Google Search, Google Maps. The call history is going to be launched in the US and Canada, and also the same goes for messaging. And read receipts again from Google Search and Maps. Those were the new things that they said that was a part of the new features. But
so those are kind of the new things. But again, if support is going away, I care more about the support, because whenever there is this review missed or something, the only way to kind of get some sort of answer to it was support. They were really slow, but at least they were there. But if it's kind of going away, that kind of sucks. But what can you do?
Duplicate listings, invalid listings, or all kinds of other issues,
spam,
trying to resolve anything.
Mostly spam.
Oh my god.
Spam, I don't think support helps either. You can Let's not touch.
Maybe
let's
maybe
leave that
a
topic.
spam update will now start to pull in those kinds of results. Who knows? I don't know.
I think spam on maps, even though they have updates going on for it, I don't think it has helped like, you still see a lot. And like, even like, really, really lame ones, like that is obviously like, like I'm pretty sure their algorithms can pick it up. It's just not a priority for them from what I would imagine at this stage. Or it's just too much and they can't handle it. So yeah, whatever it is. There was this tweet from SEMrush has this split testing tool. So they recently tweeted out that like when they test, like this was on an Australian e-commerce site, Target. So they tested like, adding the title with a pipe symbol and with a hyphen symbol. And apparently like, when they switched from pipe to hyphen, there was a 9% increase. So this is like, just a small test, but still like, something
Is
like
it click-through rate increase, Saijo?
click-through rate, yes.
Click-through rate increase? Okay.
Yes. Not ranking, click-through rate. So like people clicked it more often. So
can I add to that? I told you this ages ago, didn't I, Suganthan? Maybe about 2 years ago.
Yeah.
I did this with an e-commerce site myself, and I actually noticed the rankings improved as well. It was who was it? It was a steel door company, and before it was like steel doors, pipe, fire doors, and I changed all of it to hyphen as a test. The logic being in my head, for literally no other reason than
looks different.
I think my logic was that the pipes made it seem transactional, and Google wanted something to be more like not informational, but like more, or just less salesy.
Interesting.
I changed it, and now if you look at any site we optimize, you'll always see it's keyword dash keyword and then a pipe and then the brand name. But I've got rid of all of the pipes, and it's worked really well. But yeah, no, I can back that up fully. I saw that study as well, and I was like, well, yeah, that's really interesting because I did the same thing about 2 years ago, and it's worked really well.
A while back, I used to like do it with emojis, like when Google used to like accept, like there were certain emojis that used to work well, like the green tick symbol and stuff like that. And when you have that in the title, like, it used to get more clicks. Ranking wise, not so much, but clicks definitely used to be higher.
You had fonts as well, right, Saijo? You've been messing around a lot with the font.
Yeah. But like those things don't work as well these days. Like a couple of years ago, it used to work really well. I used to do things like, you could do like a triangle, like a right triangle or a left triangle or something like that. So it kind of, looks different. And like there's a higher chance of people clicking on it because it just looks different. And at times, like, instead of having a long title, I'll just leave it as like 2 words. So like with like, titles that are like, going like halfway through the page, it'll just be a small thing. It kind of sticks out. So anything that kind of stands out, like it draws attention. That was my, like, I didn't do studies on it or anything like that. It was just like a theory and like seems to work well. So I kind of stuck with it. But these days, it doesn't really help because Google writes their own title.
Right.
So
or just pulls it straight from the H1.
Well, completely completely like unrelated.
Yeah.
The whole thing messed it up completely.
100%. What next have you got for us, Saijo?
So page experience signal is coming to desktop in next year in Feb 2022, I think. So again, it's a couple of things, like a few people raised on Twitter, which was interesting. So one, like, like Google has been pushing towards this mobile index. So Google was kind of moving away from the desktop, and now they're kind of bringing the signal into desktop. So will there be like 2 separate indexes again, or will it kind of all still be powered through like mobile? So like unanswered questions, I guess. But, with their kind of move towards mobile, it's kind of interesting to see like them bringing like, more ranking signal into desktops as well. So yeah, any thoughts on that? Would love to hear your opinions.
I'm just in deeper thought.
I was just trying to think. Well, I mean, I can't see much of a difference here. I mean, obviously it was coming anyway on desktop. So I think they're probably at the point now they've done their best with mobile now. They probably want to. I think for that, Google, end of the day, just the user experience. So the ranking, the benefit that they give you is just to encourage you to make the site faster and less pop-ups, less annoying pop-ups. But if you look at even like some of the largest sites now, the user experience is terrible. Like, good example, just go to dailymail.co.uk and you'll see how bad the whole experience is, because you'll get loads of pop-up GDPR stuff, ads everywhere. Like, on the 2 massive ads on every news article, you have these 2 really large ads you'll have at the top. There's
Adblock Plus. I haven't seen ads in a while.
Plenty of like news sites, they have these massive YouTube videos, like YouTube style video ads showing up right before you can even start reading the articles, coming up right at the top. I can kind of see these pages having some sort of effect after the page experience goes live with the desktop, because most of these companies, they're pretty good at hiding ads from mobile. Like, when they detect mobile, they'll probably show less ads, keep the user experience a bit more better on mobile, because people on the move, right, when they're reading news or reading an article. But on a desktop, it's a bit different story. So it'll be quite interesting to see how Google's going to handle that. If you look at any major newspaper, news outlet, any tech website, you will see a lot of ads on desktop compared to mobile. So it'll be interesting to see how Google is going to tackle this.
It's really interesting. I think, like, just thinking back in the history, like, Google back in 2016 was sort of saying, about moving sites being evaluated on desktop version to the side to the mobile version. And that's, then had this whole influx change, like with mobile first indexing. I think, people get it. And I think maybe they might have seen like too much of a push towards mobile. And it's just like, well, desktop still has a very large pool of users. It still very much has all these different signals, and maybe like when we're considering like core web vitals, like looking more on mobile, it's like, well, desktop still is there. It's still important so maybe they're wanting to just like update that and be able to make sure that those signals are being considered just as much as they are for desktop as they are for mobile, because mobile usage has exploded like exponentially, over the last 6-8 years, and I feel like for better representation. Oh yeah, probably way more than that. Probably double that actually. Site for using the SERPs to use the like mobile version to evaluate like sites rankings. So I'd be really interested to see like how that does affect things. Yeah,
like just being like a page experience signal, I don't think it might like change a lot, because the one that they released for mobile didn't really move the needle all that lot. So again, with the desktop, it might not even do that. So we'll see.
Unless it was complete garbage.
I think it'll be a very tiny signal, even if if you believe it's a signal. I think it'll be very small.
I was gonna say, like, I love our tenacity as an industry to, like, when something's going to be declared as a ranking factor, we just jump on it, don't we? And I'd love to hear someone who's actually just all they've done is improve that, and they've seen rankings or anything go up. Because I've got 2 or 3 clients whose page speed was terrible before, or everything was terrible actually. And don't get me wrong, I'm glad we did it, and everyone should, by the way. I'm not saying don't do it, but we've improved everything in terms of Core Web Vitals page speed, and nothing's happened. Literally nothing's moved. I'd be interested in hearing if anyone literally has just sorted that bit out and it's changed.
But I think it's better for the users, right?
Yeah,
the way I see it, it's more to do with the users. Because if you remember, you're having a really fast site and better experience about entire user experience of buying something off your mobile, right, on your site. If the whole experience is easier, right, quicker for a user, it just helps you the conversion. I don't even think that helps the rankings.
No, you're right.
So I think it would be good, if there are if you have access to sites where the ranking fluctuates all the time. So I'm guessing that's a stage where Google has a tough time deciding which one, is a better page. So they're kind of constantly shuffling. At that point, if you improve Core Web Vitals and then see a ranking increase, you can kind of say there's a small boost, which kind of, impacts that. But things like that is hard to test because things are changing in the SERPs so much all the time. So it can't effectively be tested, I think. At least I can't think of a way to do a test properly for that.
I feel like the only times that I've seen remarkable improvements are when when it's so bad that it just either like completely times out or doesn't load. Like, well, obviously, like you can see the page now, so congratulations. Someone can actually view the page, or interact with it.
But they also make it to do with Googlebot as well. Google is also trying to make it so encourage people to make their sites faster, load far quicker, SERP assets faster, because Googlebot as well, they want the Googlebot to be a lot more efficient, because you got to remember it's resources for Google, right? Every time you want to do the crawling, indexing, they want to make it fast as possible. So if your site response is slow, Googlebot can actually time out. Once it's time out, Googlebot won't, crawl you as much, because they know you have a bad site. Because I think John Muller said that couple last year or something. They said, look, if your site is slow and we just won't crawl you as much, because we don't want to take up whatever resources you left for the users. We don't want to like DDoS your site and bring down your server if you have a poor site. So I think that's another way to look at it. Google's trying to be more efficient with their crawling.
It's not like 100%. An SEO issue as such, right? So they have other issues to kind of tackle before worrying about SEO at that stage. Like, especially like if you are getting a lot of traffic, like chances are like, you won't be doing that at that stage. So
we also know they have different priorities as well in terms of crawling. So if you have a faster site, you could be moved into a top tier site. So for example, if you have a site that's extremely fast, you match all the web core vitals and everything, you could be actually moved to a top tier where Google can actually crawl you a lot more. So this is where like log file analysis, if you keep looking at your log files. What I love about Jet Octopus, I just want to give it a plug. I've been using them quite a while now. One thing they do is they give you that column as well with your crawl data. So they'll tell you, okay, for this page, you get this much traffic, these are the problems in this page, this is the HTTP code. And they will also tell you how many times Googlebot crawled that page in the last 6 months. So you can kind of get a feel for it. I've been into a client recently. They have like 10 million hits a month. And one of the things I noticed, they had an internal, like a dashboard where they actually pulled Googlebot data with that. So that column is quite important, having that Googlebot. I know a lot of people think it's not really that necessary, but it's a good practice to have that, just so you can kind of cross-reference to see how Google is doing and also the response time of your server response time for the request.
Yep. Excellent. Some of the other things, like there was a Google spam update. So in November, so I don't remember the exact date, but again, like with these spam updates, it's kind of hard to see like, what kind of moves the needle. Nothing concrete has come out from anyone yet. So, but there was a spam update. Most of the sites that I kind of look at, like I didn't see a big change. So I'm not really sure how much of a impact it had. But again, like, whenever these update goes up, there are a lot of people who says like, the ranking completely tanked, and some say like, their past penalties have been reversed and stuff like that. But
I did see that.
Yeah, you did. Okay. So
not penalties reversed. Sorry. I did see that. I saw on Twitter, and I've been a bit light on Twitter because I actually got COVID during the month. But I did see that someone was saying that like Google basically just automatically de-indexed like a ton of toxic links and things like that, and disassociated from their site. And that was sort of like, pretty much right after the spam update. I'm just trying to remember like who actually did the tweet.
I think it was Glenn, right? Glenn Gabe.
Yeah,
probably.
Yeah.
That sounds about right. Like,
yeah.
Oh yes, it's Glenn Gabe. So therefore, like,
that. I remember saying that. I didn't get a chance to read it. I think it's in my bookmarks and like to read kind of thing.
Yeah.
I
it's a very
quickly
long list.
scanned it. Yeah.
Yeah. But,
so that's good.
Yeah,
but again, like, those sort of spammy links, I'm not really sure how much of an impact that has these days. Like, I think like a couple of like years back, maybe like there was an impact when you kind of saw like, negative SEO and that sort of thing. But these days, like, I don't even check those links these days. I don't just don't even bother with those. Like, it just comes and goes.
I think Google said that, Saijo, that they're pretty good at ignoring different types of links. I think Google had enough time now to sort of do pattern detection on these links profile. So they got a pretty good idea when they see, like, we see, like, if you have Href, for example, you see a whole lot of like blog post links coming up, and you panic. We had clients coming to us and say, hey guys, is it because are these, should we disable these links, or we should be worried about? We're like, no, not really. Two things. One, Href is just discovering some of these links now, or these links have been there forever. But Google said multiple times they're good at ignoring certain types of links. So I think the algorithms are pretty good. Like, getting to a point now they can.
I do think we give them too much. I do think we give them too much credit, though. Sometimes, honestly, like, just because they've said this, I don't really like.
Yeah, not always. Yeah, and like I do get it. Like, at times, like there are things that Google says, like, that you can't always take it at 100%, I guess. But like, again, like some of the things with links, I think they have gotten really good, and there will definitely be edge cases for these sort of things, right? Like, you might have one client where they're really struggling, where it could be because of these links. So that could be like a lot of other factors, but these links are really kind of holding them down. So there could be cases like that, but majority of the cases, I think you can safely ignore most of the links these days, those sort of links.
Unless you are involved in a very specific black hat sort of PBN sort of place where you have PBN private networks, Google can sort of follow through these footprints. As much as people like to say, oh, our network has no footprint, but yeah, you do have footprint, because they can quite easily. I mean, if they want to, I mean, we know for a fact that Google has a team, like, they actually go after some of these networks, large networks. I mean, you've got black hat forums, for example, you see publicly selling links, right? It doesn't take much to
so that industry still works too, right? So that's like that's the thing. So I think like selling links and buying links, it's going on like well, and there are people ranking sites with it, like that still goes on. But like I was specifically referring to like the really like low end spammy links that used to hurt sites, like the initial penguin, like that decimated a lot of like real businesses, because like till that stage links was like quantity, nothing to do with quality, right? So and then there came a change after that, I think. So they did a few penguin updates, and then they started getting it right, and then they started ignoring like those like really shitty links, I guess. So I think those sort of links don't really work, but like people who like create like proper sites and sell links, those sort of things, I think they still work to an extent. Maybe not to the extent that it used to, but I think they still kind of work fairly well. Again, just my opinion.
I mean, we had the, how everyone's been hit with some sort of, well, maybe it's just Href, but just hit with like a ton of blogspot links all of a sudden. I don't know. I've had about 3 sites hit with them. I disavow the whole domain. I did see about a month later an organic increase, but I did a lot of other stuff as well. So I don't know if that's cause and effect. I don't know if that's the reason, but I did just disavow the whole domain just to see what happened. We did get a lot, but yeah, I think generally I'd agree.
I agree with Saijo as well. I agree with Saijo as well that Google is good at sort of ignoring and not really penalizing. And also I think it works on a page level as well now, rather than a site level. So they could evaluate quality of the certain links pointing to certain pages. So not just the entire site. So if you have a couple of pages, might go down, not the entire site like used to.
Awesome. So this is not really like an SEO news, but I'm guessing like everybody would have heard about Meta by now.
And again, I've seen the memes and I love them. Keep them coming.
So yeah, I'm not gonna go in deep into it, but like Facebook rebranded their holding company to Meta, so that's the thing. Some of the other things.
Shout out to Sweet Baby Ray's.
Yeah. So
she's barbecue sauce in the background. Like, why is it on your bookcase, mate? Like, sorry. Okay, I'm done. I'm done.
So some of the other things was like I think Brave has a new search engine. I'm sure like you guys might have heard about it. It's been a few months now. It's reasonably good, and one of the things that like they actually like told everyone like they use click-through rate, like click data in their ranking signal. So they're outright stating it, like, they use that, unlike Google. So again, I think that's one of the things that Google is now very transparent about, Suganthan. Like they do keep saying they don't use it, but I think like
They do.
there is some aspect of it that gets used. So
No,
again,
I agree 100%. I think they do use click-through rates. I mean, it's very obvious, right? That if you have I don't think click-through rate plays a massive role as it used to before, because people are trying to manipulate that as well using clicks and there were a couple of tools.
Mm-hmm.
I think they kind of got a hang of it as well now. So I think it has to happen naturally as well. Like if the CTR, I think Google probably looking at this on a sort of long-term basis. And I also believe that they reset this data time to time. So they can kind of like, you got to remember the seasonality, right? You got to remember the trends. So if they favor certain keywords for click-through rates, that the seasonality will be a different story. So they're going to have to, at some point, reset that data and collect it all over again. Maybe they do a reset every other year. We don't know.
Interesting. So I'm guessing like for people who use Cloudflare, like, they give you an easy way to like send custom HTTP, like, headers now. So instead of, I think previously you needed to use page rules, and you have like a limited number of page rules that you can set. So now they have another option to do that, which is kind of cool. Then like Google Aurora. So that is the team that like works with various JavaScript libraries to kind of create like, components, like custom components. So recently they did like a component for Next.js. So it's like, instead of using like your standard image, you will call this component and define your image in it, and it will kind of spit out like a performant version of that image. So it'll kind of do all the image performance best practices on it. So like, you don't have to do like those sort of heavy lifting from your end. So eventually the plan is they'll kind of, release these modules for like, Next.js, React, and all of those. So you can just start calling these components in. So that's kind of cool.
It is really cool. Oh, I love Cloudflare.
I think Cloudflare is doing some really cool stuff like this year, at least. I mean, I don't know if you guys seen signed exchanges now. The early hints, I think, Saijo, you probably saw the early hints as well.
Did you get access to it? Like, I still haven't got access.
I know Jen Henshaw from Hollywood. I think he got it. I was talking to him about it because he's a big fan of Cloudflare as well. I think the 103 status code with the early hints is I think I'm still waiting. I'm on the beta waiting list. I think that's also kind of give you that preload. I think preload the content for you early without waiting for the server response for the data to load. So I think Cloudflare is doing some really cool stuff lately. Something to pay attention to.
Yeah. So again, like, one of the other big news I think was like, all the things with AMP, how they kind of colluded with Facebook and all that. So there's like a huge post on that. So definitely worth reading about it. So like a lot of the things that people used to say about AMP, like, that people who are very vocal against AMP. So a lot of those things are kind of, coming true now. So yeah, it's interesting to see it.
Yeah.
Another, I think, big thing is you get Google Discover data in the search. What was that? Search Analytics API now. So that is pretty big. LinkedIn rolled out their freelance marketplace. So yeah, a lot of things like that. So I think like that's the time for news, right? So we'll kind of.
Yo! I'm here at the light. Sorry.
Sorry about that.
Sorry. Technical difficulties. Sorry, guys.
So we'll be back momentarily. So
the things I have to do to keep the lights on, right? What I was going to say is, one of the things that there's a couple of things we haven't mentioned that maybe I'll just mention, and we can sort of move on to the Prezo. But continuous scrolling on mobile has been rolled out over the course of October, and I think it's really interesting because, like if you've got continuous scrolling on mobile, like you don't have to necessarily go to the next page. Like it's going to be really interesting to see like how that impacts click-through rate, like If you're on the second page now, maybe it's not like hiding a dead body. So I'm really, really interested to see like how this is going to affect, just traffic in general. Like we've all done it. Like we're just literally sitting in beds, like, with all the chins, just looking at this sort of stuff. I'm really, really interested in this one to see how
You're
how
sitting
it
in bed and doing that. I'm lying down and doing that.
I think Google did say they do treat the infinite scroll even on page, if after 10th result, they still treat them as page 2. It's kind of like the pagination with the, like if you have pagination with infinite scroll.
That's only for the reporting bit, right? So that, like, from a reporting point of view, that makes sense. But I think like it'll still bring in more traffic for people who are on page 2 and 3, just because like there is that less friction of clicking on something. You kind of scroll, you kind of find what you want and click on it. So I think that'll still,
same,
like,
right?
in terms of traffic,
media, right? Social media apps the same way, right? Like if you're on Facebook video newsfeed or TikTok or Instagram or whatever, they all just keep giving you that information, right?
But this is only till like 4 pages though, right? So this is only till 4 pages, and it's only rolled out in the US.
Yeah, absolutely.
Interesting to see how changes the click-through rates.
Absolutely. And just thinking as well, like video, like short form videos now, like available on desktop as well, and like web stories and things like that, which, for organic, like it's kind of like am I looking at Google, or am I looking like Instagram or like Snapchat or things like that? Like
there's a huge demand for it, right? So that's the thing. So the Google is always kind of going where there's a demand, and like especially like the short videos, like it has kind of kicked out on all platforms, right? Like TikTok, Snapchat, like one of them probably pioneered it, and then like everybody else has it now, like even like Spotify, and everybody has that. So like there is that demand, like people want that, and it's only natural that Google kind of taps into that.
I think they realize that people can be hooked to that infinite scroll, right? Because as long as you keep giving them the most relevant data one after another, you're going to continue to watch those. Like if it's the same, very similar, if you're on TikTok, like start watching a couple of videos that you like, and they start feeding you more and more similar data. The algorithm, try to figure out what you like, and after like a couple of days, there was a good article about it. I can't remember where exactly, but they did an experiment about TikTok, how TikTok managed to, how they managed to nail the persona, like what you like in a week or so, and they constantly manage to deliver very relevant videos. So increase the retention time. I think that's the way to look at it. Yeah,
absolutely. And I think one of the things that maybe even we can kind of forget is like Google is very much a business. It's still like trying to retain attention, and like keeping people sticking on those pages is still very much something they want to do. And I'm even thinking like big picture, natural language processing, and the rollout of like Google Mum, like the multitask unified model stuff. Like it is utilizing passage indexing, like splitting, understanding content and how it's understood and indexed. Like like one of these things are like super trained to go through and be able to understand video content. So again, if it's like, look where the money goes. Like if this sort of stuff has been like introduced onto desktop, now we've got like infinite scroll onto mobile experience. Like I feel like we're moving towards like from an organic search to like how social media is growing and generating. It's really super interesting. Like even like big moments, like that was something that got announced like even was that October? I can't remember now.
I think it was Search.io or something, right? A couple of months
something
ago,
like that. Yeah, I mean, like algorithmically curated breaking news. Longer form content, like having opportunities, like with better algorithms. I don't know. I think all of this sort of stuff is just super interesting to see how it's going and how it's evolving. And yeah, sorry, I kind of went on to a bit of a diatribe about Google Mum from video and that sort of stuff. But yeah, it's, I don't know.
I think like that's like a really powerful like system that they have. Like they can kind of surface things from video, audio, and they were recently showcasing something to do with Google Lenses. So this was a couple of months back as well. So now, like, you can take like if you see like a pattern, you can take the pattern and ask them to show shirts in that pattern and stuff like that, and it like gets those results. So which is like really, really powerful. And like like imagine like you would use that, and like I can see people using that in shop, like when you want to shop things, you just like see a plant or like like a wall with a really nice like design. You take a photo and then suddenly you want that in shirts or mugs or whatever, you kind of get that. So
yeah, absolutely.
Snapshot got a similar feature with that visual search where you can take a picture of like a sneaker or t-shirt.
Snapchat, Pinterest, like
Pinterest,
all of them have it, like and like I'm sure Apple.
I don't
like,
think it's
will be there
mainstream
as well.
yet, right? I don't think that's gone really mainstream yet.
I think it has, right? So like I think back in the day as well, like I think that lenses thing is much more like from a search point of view, it makes much more sense than like voice search. Like if you think about it, because when I do something with lenses, I am like I can transition into that buy stage after that, right? Whereas when I'm searching with voice, it's like set an alarm or like what time is it in like India and stuff like that, where it is I just want something and I'm done with it and I'm kind of moving along, right? So I think like from an e-commerce point of view, lenses makes a big difference, which is why like a lot of these platforms have kind of invested in it. And like even if you look at the big retailers like Walmart and all that, they've kind of bought companies that does this, so which kind of shows that like everybody is kind of moving into that space. So this was like years ago, so like you can kind of see practical application these days now.
Yeah,
we've seen some really interesting business, haven't we, Suganthan, where like they're making actual video content, a recipe. They're making like proper videos about how to make this, and then you can choose which avenue you go down. So like it's how to make scrambled eggs.
Choose your own adventure.
Well, no,
don't matter.
It's going to be so clever.
Can they do that for cocktails?
Honestly, it's like how to make scrambled egg, and the first option that comes up is are you vegan or not, and then if you go yes, then it'll go down the route of like how to make it with soy milk, and then all the way through you can just click and add the ingredients to your your shopping thing, and then buy. It's so clever. We've just started to see that, and I think that's going to be massive.
Yeah,
oh man,
definitely.
That's so cool.
So
can you send that to me, because I don't think I've seen that.
I'll send you a company who's using it. I don't know.
We work with a client like that, so yeah.
I'll send you a company who's doing it, and it's they've only just started. They're American. We're yet to see it actually go anywhere, but like honestly, it's so exciting.
Interesting.
I can definitely see a market for it. Like can really take off. Just two more things that I'll touch on, then we can kind of go to the next session. So index now. So this was announced like a month ago, I think. Bing is kind of leading the charge on it. The concept, like I'm not 100% sold on it yet, but like apparently like you can use that to kind of get things indexed straight away. So Google hasn't like committed to it. So like I'm not that interested in it right now because like it's just for Bing and Yandex, I think. So yeah, any thoughts on that?
I mean, it's just I
am Google.
On that one.
No, it's fine, like because like it's just on
Google.
Bing, so yeah, exactly. So that's the thought
I
that
don't
everybody
see-
had, I guess.
I guess Google, I'm not sure if that's true now. Maybe it's changed. There's so much information to remember nowadays. Google had this last mod.
You should sign up to TLDR marketing.
Hey.
I'm not sure if Google still use the last mod attribute in the sitemap XML. So whenever you make a change to the content, but what Google, I remember John Mueller saying a couple of months ago that he said, look, if you try to trick Google into editing a piece of content, saying, hey, it's been updated now, but actual content itself is not updated, that Google will not see that as a positive signal, right? I'm not sure where the tweet is. Maybe I'll retweet it or find it. I think it kind of makes sense. Google kind of want to compare the old content with the new updated one. So with the Bing system, I think quite similar. They can kind of get that signal. I think it's just about getting a signal saying, hey, published a new one or published a new article or this has been updated. But Google can do that anyway. They will keep.
Yeah, so all the
as long as you have
search
the
engines will be
sitemap hook,
having
right?
that information, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
As long as you have the sitemap hook, and if your new content get pushed to the sitemap, Google can, first thing Google crawl is pretty much that, right? So they will see that new file, and I think this is something we discuss a lot, right, Andy, with Google, and he loved that bit because they don't seem to be indexing all the pages now, because it seems like they have some sort of quality filter now for new pages. So I think that's probably why Google is not interested as much in this, because they have their own way of kind of evaluating the quality of a page before they want to put that into the index. If you start looking at the Search Console and look at the pages that's crawled but not indexed, if you start looking at the type of pages that Google actually crawled but not indexed, kind of get a feel for it, because you will see these author pages, you will see the category pages, you will see these random pages on a website where like you forgot to kind of remove from the index, like those test pages, demo pages. You will see them sitting there. That kind of indicates Google is kind of good at trying to figure out these pages actually suitable for the index. They're trying to keep the index blown, basically.
Yeah. So good to an extent till they get it wrong, and when it does not go noticed. So like now there could be situations where like you want it to work a certain way, and then Google like just don't understand that, and they just say like, yep, anything with like categories in them, we don't look at it because like generally it's not used, but that might not be the case like for you. So like they don't always get it right. That's what I'm trying to say, I guess. Yeah.
100%. I agree with that. But I think this is where this is probably the reason why Google don't want to go through this path, because they do that. But I don't think Bing, they have a similar system in place. Maybe they have, we don't know.
Yeah. The last thing that I will touch on is SEMrush introduced like intent into their like tool suite. So it's very basic. It'll tell you like if it's a transactional or informational. So it's just that basic level, but it's kind of good to see that. And I think that might be a good segue to kind of get into like what you guys are going to talk about, because you think about intent in a different way, right?
Slightly, yeah.
So I'll let you gents kind of take it away from there.
I like the simplicity, and look, it's kind of settled like a couple of like arguments of is it commercial or is it transactional intent? Even here in the office, when it got rolled out, it's like, oh well, SEMrush says this, but I like it, and it can be simplified for things, but at the same time, I love like semantic relationships with things and being able to categorize things into such granularity that makes things a lot more colorful. Like it gives like the greater context, and it appropriately assigns things that need that proper assignment. And I feel like sometimes maybe like just modulating everything off into like 4 different categories kind of is like, well, it's too simple sometimes, but that's just me. That's just me.
I'm not saying like it's a perfect system. It's kind of like assigning like a number to keyword difficulty, right? It's kind of like that. It's good for a quick kind of sense check and to kind of quickly get that, like but like you'll definitely not be able to like group every keyword out there into like 4 buckets, right? It's never going to happen.
Yeah, but even that, sorry, I'm kind of going on a bit of a diatribe here, but even that, like, you look at a keyword and it'll have a mix of intent. So should it be like both informational and transactional?
Yeah, it can be,
or informational and commercial. Like at the moment, it's kind of only really been assigned like one specific thing. And I just think, again, I'm just saying like, so I'm encouraged by this. But I just think like, check the SERP. Everything is seasonal. It does consistently change, and just a simple thing of like what is Google presenting as far as what it thinks the best results are, and then mark it by the benchmark of what's actually in the SERP. I feel like that is recommendation that will never change. So maybe rely on those kinds of signals rather than just kind of being a little bit lazy and just be like, oh well, it's informational, so these blogs therefore should be good. I don't know.
I mean, you've
definitely, I agree. 100%.
Blowing a massive hole in keyword insight, sure, but yeah, I think
That's
I do have a slight comeback to it, which I'll get to, I guess.
I love that.
Yeah, no, so funnily enough, and we'll get into it. And by the way, the presentation we're going to do is not meant to be a plug on the tool. It's meant to be why we came up with this idea of context and what we solved with it. But when we were first starting to play with intent, we used loads of APIs. We tried to, and I don't think this is exactly what you're saying, Nick, but we tried to get to a load of granularity around, okay, does this keyword, is it not only transactional, but is it navigational? Is it, we got to such granularity to the point where we were pissing around trying to actually, long story short, we were like, well, actually, I just want to know, do I need a product page or a blog? And we were too busy, worrying whether it was navigational or all these other things. And we were just like, no, we just got to simplify it. So in our initial design of the tool, we broke it down into like, I think it was like 15 to 20 different intents. We had like visual, navigational, transactional. We had all these different intents. We're like, no, this is too much. We just got to break it down to 3. Because you can be paralyzed by options, which is we simplified it a lot. But and actually we had I had a really good chat with Kane at Content Harmony. He was like we break the content down into, we break the intent down to such granularity, and you don't. And we're like, but that's not what we're trying to do. We just wanted to plug a load of keywords in and know very quickly what to do. Yours is the next step. Once you've now got the content you want to optimize, okay, now let's drill down into the intent at a more granular level. But I do know what you mean. But we were paralyzed with options when we first tried to break it down. Like loads
I think the easiest way to say it, we're trying to get actionable sort of, what do you do at the beginning,
quick
right?
Actions,
quick action. That's how I would say it. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And
you can make that
not
initial,
just to.
You can make that initial optimization, but then you can do that micro optimization after you have the page, and you can start thinking about adding, should we be targeting any PA boxes here? Should we, answering a very specific query, right? Those are like micro work. I think we are at the stage where we like make that main decision. Should we be working on a blog post, or should we be working on a product page? Should we be working on both with a fragmented intent? So.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you're basically, articulating a very, very different problem that I think, every SaaS tool, or just, tool company out there has, experience with this kind of thing. Like, I absolutely see the need for it. I think it really does help, like, to simplify things. I think and maybe this is just me, when I see maybe like, just like, quick 80-20, like, cool. All right, this is it. And this is only it. Move on. I just feel like, that kind of takes away the nuance of, just checking the SERP. So I think maybe what the message was, like, yes, this is helpful. It's really, really good to be able to like make this decision on a top level. But again, if you're looking at the quality of the content that is going to be, going up against the SERPs, always check the benchmark of what's actually there. And of course, like the time that you're posting it. Maybe a bit of a shout out to my good friend, Peter Machinkovich, who's in the chat, with his post about Black Friday. Black Friday, I think it's like around about September or something like that. You can see on Google Trends, it's like, it starts. But like, like before that, it's all like informational content, like, like what happened, like news stories, kinds of things. And then it starts to like, bleed into like, transactional. Like Google is literally like, okay,
it's a shift, intent shift. It's a shift of intent based on seasonality or trend.
Exactly. Yeah. And massive shout out to you, Peter, for getting your clients like
I saw that tweet. That was it's in my bookmark. I need to read.
Also, just generally anything Peter tweets is amazing. To be fair, not just that.
Dude.
He don't tweet often, but when he does, it's good.
It's good. It is good.
Hell yeah! Awesome. Saijo, how are we going? I'm just conscious of the time, and I'm really excited to actually hear what Suganthan and Andy actually have to present.
So we're done with the news. So we can.
There was a bit of an extended one because it was just too good of a chat, and it's been a very busy month. Awesome. So without further ado, of course, we're going to be going into the keywords a lot more granularly with keyword intent, with two very, very well known and very well loved legends. Take it away, guys.
Hello. Yeah, just before I get into it, so this is I guess this is in relation to intent is becoming a huge thing, like SEMrush just released their tool. And we want to talk about keyword context. It's like a metric that Suganthan and I mean, if it's not I guess it's a sort of plug to our tool, but it's not meant to be. It's because we didn't like this idea of intent and the way it's going. Intent's fantastic, by the way, but it's like we wanted to give something a bit, how do I say this without
actionable? Actionable.
Yeah, but I feel like something a bit more actionable. So we came up with this idea of context. We've been using it for well before the tool even existed, and we were talking to clients about keyword context, and they were like, "What's that?" And we had to explain it. So I wish we just called it intent from the start, to be honest, because it's a pain trying to talk about it. But that's what this is about: keyword context, how we use it, and how we think about it, and hopefully you can take the ideas we give you and implement it yourself. I'll start off with a bit about us. If you didn't know us, Suganthan, you talk about you, obviously, and I'll talk about
me. Yeah, I've been doing SEO for plus 10 plus years now. I've worked with different type of clients. Internationally, I also do a lot of work in the Nordic area. I'm from live in Norway, so I work with a lot of clients in the Norway, Denmark, and Sweden. As well as international, I'm also a co-founder of Snippet Digital with Andy, and we build a bunch of tools. So we do.
I've just noticed on my little profile it says 20 years of experience, which means I started when I was 10, which is not true. That's combined. That is very misleading. I did not start when I was 10 years old.
But appreciate the honesty. Like, you're looking great for your age, mate.
Oh yeah, when I was 10, I was optimizing everything. No, I combined 20 years. Definitely not me. But I got into it. Basically, I started my own company and grew that to the turnover of 2 million. It was selling roller shutters, which is probably the most dull product ever. But if you want to start out in SEO, choose a really boring product and it's really easy to rank. That's what I did. And then, I basically went consulting and met Suganthan. Fun fact, in a pub, we've only met once and we've started, well, 2 businesses, but Suganthan and I have only met once because of cheers COVID. But yeah, we met each other 2 years ago and started Snippet Digital. And then our whole mantra was, I'm a terrible manager. I'm not good at managing people. So we tried to make our own tools to basically take some of the workload off of us. And that's how it span out into all this other stuff. But it's been a fun ride. And with that said, we're going to go into the presentation. So the problem we're trying to solve, and hopefully there'll be anecdotes, there'll be examples. You'll hopefully pick something up. If you don't, I'm sorry, but thanks for listening. Basically, and we all know intent is becoming a massive thing. Obviously, SEMrush has just pulled it into their tools, and I think more will follow. I know Ahrefs has got it in their sort of wheelhouse. They're planning on doing it, and loads of tools are bringing it in. But basically, what is intent? It's how can you be visible for a keyword if the type of content you're producing isn't aligned with what the user's searching for. So a good example is, and I think it's on the next slide actually, when you add these modifiers to keywords, you're kind of explicit in what you're saying. So when you say buy CBD oil or iPhone 12 specifications or MailChimp versus HubSpot, it's very clear what you want. MailChimp versus HubSpot, I want to see comparisons. iPhone 12 specifications, I want to see loads of blogs about what it is. The problem comes, and it's in a lot of people's keyword research, and I'm guilty of this, when I used to try and categorize keywords into their intent, if it was just iPhone 12 or CBD oil or MailChimp, to me, it's generally quite, well, how I used to categorize that is quite transactional. I'd have been like, okay, surely if someone's typing iPhone 12, that's going to be transactional, because why else would you be Googling such a short keyword? And Yeah, so search modifiers make that intent explicit. Without them, we don't really know what we're trying to search for, which is why when you Google some of these, you get, or when you search these, not just Google, anything, we call this generally fragmented intent. So when you search CBD oil, when you search iPhone 12, you get a real mixture of results. So iPhone 12 was a really interesting one for me. We get like, oh, and I've spelt it wrong in the screenshot as well. That's embarrassing. But when you Google iPhone 12, when you Google iPhone 12, you get this real mix of reviews, specifications, and then you get these product pages. So what do we mean when we type these little keywords? So to summarize, I guess all those points is understanding the intent behind a keyword, and particularly ones without modifiers, is really important in working out what sort of content you want to produce. And bear with me on that thought, because there is going to be some examples later. Enter keyword context. So when we talk about context, we are trying to work out the actual contextual setting around this keyword. Again, that's probably really confusing at the moment, but again, bear with me because it's going to become very clear. But we want to know, how that keyword and the results of that search engine sit around, how it works and how it sort of appears on those search engines. Coming back to that example of CBD oil, which is, very short tail. What do we mean when we say that? We would have hypothesized that if we were talking about CBD oil, we would probably want to buy it. And indeed, this is a screenshot from SEMrush's new feature, and it sort of proves that. And actually, a lot of tools also would prove that. Surely, if I Google the word CBD oil, it's because I want to buy it. And that is true, eventually. The SERPs, actually, when you Google it, there's all these reviews. There's, the benefits. There's what is it? There's health risks, health benefits. This is what we mean by context. So if I'm Googling it, yes, there is commercial intent. Of course, I want to buy it. And a lot of tools would classify it as such. But actually, the actual context of that keyword is, actually, I want to know a bit more about it. And that's why we call it context rather than intent. And actually, going back to what we said before, we used to be paralyzed by, so we used to break intent by more than, so how we used to have classified that is we would have gone informational, question, visual, because there's like images if you go a bit further down, and that just bowled us over. Like there was too much going on, so we just wanted to scale it right back and, okay, what is the actual context? And looking at this, it's actually not product pages, it's long form articles, it's better health benefits, that sort of thing. So this is where keyword context comes in. So SEMrush has classified that as commercial. Plenty of other tools do too, because we've tested them. When you put them, how we would do that, and you can see it in Keyword Insights. And again, it's not I don't mean it to be a plug. There's plenty of tools that also do intent that are very good. There's plenty of tools that do clustering. But when you put it through our tool and how we would have classified that is, it's definitely an article that needs doing. And you can see here how we break this down is for that keyword CBD oil, 9 of the results are articles and 1 is a product page. So the context of it is what we're saying is it's very much an article, not a product page. It's informational. So that's what we mean by the context, because the intent is commercial, the context is informational. So how do we use it? This is where I'm going to bring in some case studies and hopefully you'll start to see it. So interestingly, why we came up with this idea was to give you some background. We had a client who sells luxury mattresses, and they came to us as a consultancy, as an agency, and they were like, look, we want to rank for all of our traffic is coming in through our blogs. Everyone who searches our keywords are coming in through our blog section. We want to hire you to make sure they come onto our product pages rather than our blogs, because obviously if you come into the blog or an information article, they're a lot less likely to buy. Well, like, yeah, cool, we'll do that. And this is an example of one of the keywords. The main keywords they wanted to rank for was inner spring mattresses, because that was, they sell a lot of these. So we did a keyword research. I'm hoping it's here. Yeah, we did a massive keyword research. I think we pulled about 8,000. Well, we pulled about 40,000 keywords, And then we got rid of any keywords that had these modifiers in. So any keyword that had why, where, to, guide, versus, anything that definitely made it transactional. We were left with about 8,000 keywords. And we started spot checking them. And we searched inner spring mattress, we searched memory foam mattress, we searched king size mattress. And every time we searched them, we were seeing like, okay, actually 7 out of the 10 results are like best memory foam mattress of 2001 or 2012, whatever year it was. Best king size mattress for back pains. It was like all these long form articles. And we came up with this idea of context. We were like, okay, how can we couldn't just go back to them and go, look, we've tested like 50 keywords and they're all pretty informational. So we wanted a way to run all 8,000 keywords through and pull off really quickly, okay, this is, you know, informational or whatever. And you can see just here for the inner spring mattress, clustering aside, we start to see that actually they've got, and you can see their problem straight away. They've got different URLs. We've replaced their actual name with example, but they've got different URLs ranking. So we pull through the rank, we clustered all the keywords, and we pull through the context, as we call it. They've got different URLs ranking. They've got huge gaps in where they're ranking. And actually, what should be ranking is all these articles you can see down here. And they were trying to rank all these transactional pages, as with anyone, because surely if you're typing in the spring mattress, the intent is commercial. And the intent is commercial, but I want to do a lot of research first, and that's where this idea of context comes in. In fact, when we categorize all of their keywords, what we found very quickly was across all their categories that, generally speaking, this represents about 50, well, you can see it's half, it's like 50%. So across all of their categories, what we found very quickly, the context of all the keywords they were trying to rank for was, the context was informational. You need these articles to rank. So we were very honest with them and did ourselves out of a job, to be honest with you. And we were like, look, guys, we know you want to rank your product pages, but we've pulled all the keywords. We've ran them through some contextual tool that we've come up with, some like basically pre-trained model that we've taught, and all of your keywords are informational. Well, 50% of them at least. So our advice to them was like, look, I know you want your product pages to rank, but if we were you, we would just go put your head down and focus on improving that user journey between your blogs and your product pages. And actually, it's something that Shopify do amazingly well. If you, what did I search for the other day? Top digital products or something. Shopify ranked for that. And then I typed in like best digital products, Shopify ranked for that. And then every time I clicked on it and I was scrolling through their blog, the journey between that blog or that informational article and actually signing up to Shopify was phenomenal. So Shopify is a great example if you ever want to see one. But yeah, we noticed that informational, contextually, informational articles, even for their transactional terms, were what they should be focusing on. And so our advice.
And on that point, especially on the memory foam mattress around keywords, Saijo, where the client, most of the sites also ranking were like affiliate sites, like, you know, top 10 memory foam mattresses for back pain, or, you know, all these kind of affiliate sites. So the company, the management, they were completely against listing any of their products with affiliates, right? They were completely against it. After we showed them the data and say, look, guys, either you have to go through an article form, if you have any chance of ranking, or you're going to have to go with them with an affiliate play. I mean, funny enough, the manager finally approved the affiliate play to kind of introduce their products to those affiliates, because they just couldn't, there's nothing else they could do.
To tell you the truth, like, you know, when, like you said, like, you know, the mattress keyword, it will be like, you know, informational. Like, I was a bit skeptical, like, but once you kind of start putting the data together and kind of show this, kind of makes sense. And I was like, oh, okay, that was like something that I wouldn't have expected.
Yeah, and the beauty of this, Saijo, is also this is live data. So when we look at the SERP, we look at it at that point. So we can do this after 6 months again, and then this could be different in 6 months because the Google's now changed. If it's a click-through rate, we don't know, user behavior, whatever, or the trend change. So the seasonality, anything that doesn't affect the data, because we can run it again and say, oh, hold on, 6 months ago, 50%, as Andy said, 50-60% of these are articles, but now mostly product pages. Okay, let's just start focusing on the product pages now, since the method is outdated. So if you just went with the initial intent of being commercial, you are missing out in the first 6 months, and you're thinking, oh yeah, you'll be doing a lot of work around the product pages, trying to optimize and trying to rank. We're never going to rank.
Yeah, actually, and that's a good point on the affiliate side of things. We would classify that as informational because it's a long list of things. But yeah, what our initial advice was to them, which may sound counterproductive, but it was like, you need to A, get on these affiliate lists, but B, write your own list. Write your own list of the top 12 mattresses of 2021. And I said, and be prepared to mention your competitors. And they were so against it. But we showed them examples of companies who also do it. HubSpot is a very good example. If you type in best CMSs, they rank for that, and they will talk about other CMSs, but they control the narrative. So if you basically, what I'm saying is, if this is your business and you're being outranked by, or if you're not being outranked, but if the intent is all these affiliate links, or these affiliate posts, write your own version of it. Be prepared to mention competitors. Put yourself at the top of the list. Add all the other ones as no follow. But at least, and it sounds counterintuitive, but at least you control the narrative. We have HubSpot does it perfectly, but we have a vape client who does this, and it's only Black Friday, but they have the best Black Friday vapes or something like that, and I can't remember the thing, and they rank #1 for that. And when you land on their page, they actually have the first few are their own, but then they mention all their competitors, and it works amazing for two reasons. They not only rank and they control the narrative, so at least they're getting some sales rather than none. In fact, they're getting an overwhelming majority of the sales because they put themselves at the top. But if you read the comments of the post, people actually respect it. Like, the comments are like, fair play to blah 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 blah. They've actually mentioned all their clients. We love them. I'm going to buy. Like, it's amazing what it can do. So if this is you and you are being outranked by affiliates, separate to this presentation, this is, but I would definitely recommend including those lists and being prepared to mention competitors, because at least then you control the narrative that you're in. But yeah, that's what we recommended to this mattress company. We showed them the data. We're like, look, you're gonna have to make that user journey between your blogs better, but also you're gonna have to write your own lists. Was our basically our advice. And then we had another one. I'm going to give you 3 case studies so you can start to see different examples. We have a client who specializes in like podcast editing. So they offer it as a service, but they also have a software. They obviously wanted to improve all their rankings to do with podcast editing, podcast recording, all of these things, because it was the top of funnel content. You land on that, and then you obviously hopefully inquire. So they created loads of blogs, and actually, this is how the majority of this is the other way. So in the last example, it was all the transactional keywords should have been informational. This went the other way. So we had all these keywords here, these big clusters of keywords. This column here called opportunity. It's like a custom metric we made up. It's not search volume. It's like we look at search volume where you currently rank, and it gives the difference is the opportunity. So the higher the opportunity, it means we can do something. And we saw this big thing, an online voice recorder. The opportunity was massive, and so we were like, okay, what's going on here? So we expanded the column, and you can see here, if you look at the URL, again, we've hidden the client name here. If you look at the URL, it has this date in it with the eagle-eyed among you will realize that was like the old WordPress things. We used to have the date, and it was a blog. So they'd written this blog, which ranked really well on online voice recorder, but it ranked in positions like 8 and 9. So that's why the opportunity was showing is so big here, because although they ranked well, and the average rank was actually here, you can see here, the average rank was 6. After position 3 or 4, it's sort of the graveyard shift. So after position 6 was like, how do we unleash all this extra opportunity? So we expanded the column. We're like, okay, there's obviously some extra keywords we could be including in our on the page or other things we could be optimizing towards. But the main thing we saw was that the intent or the context, and this is why we keep saying intent, it's because everyone talks about intent. And in fact, if you put the keyword online voice recorder into SEMrush, it will tell you the intent is informational. If you put it into all these other tools, it'll say the context is the intent is informational. But the context of that is very much a product page. When we classify as product, we don't inherently mean that it's something you buy. We just mean it's not informational, basically. And when we're scanning down, we can see, okay, it very much needed to be a product page, and they've written a blog about it. So this, honestly, it was the easiest win we've ever done. All we did was they spun up a product page, which was an online voice recorder. They literally made an online voice recorder. We redirected the blog to it, and the traffic jumped up 341% in about, I don't know, 3 weeks. They rank number 1 and 2 for all of anything to do with online voice recorders now. So really quick win there, where other tools talk about the intent, which is informational, and it is informational, the intent behind it, but the context of it was very much producty. So that went the other way.
Like, once you did that, like, what was the rank for that page, if you don't mind me asking, and if you don't mind sharing that?
Is in the rank for voice recorder and everything to do with that?
Yeah, that particular page.
Top 3.
Top
1,
3.
2, top 3. Most of them, almost instantly. But they had the authority as well, Saijo, just to put that in. They had the authority, so they could rank. Because Google, we could look at the URL and we can kind of see Google is finding the most relevant page on their site for that term is that blog post. That's the most relevant. They're finding it. When they saw them much better in match content that matched the intent, they instantly ranked that.
Ranked it too. Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, so if you looked at it now, all of these URLs are filled in, and all of these, the rank basically has jumped up from, the average rank has jumped up from 6 to like 2 and 3.
Yep.
So it just, the increase was
exponential. That's a big jump, and like, a very easy win.
Yeah, and they're our biggest fans. So, I mean, we're trying to hide the data, but if you go on our website, they've given us glowing reviews, so you'll see them. So that was the other way. We've gone the other way, where the intent was actually informational, but our context is saying product-based. And then a third case study was, and this is where we're trying to, I guess I wanted to bring up the fact that sometimes keywords you think are transactional or aren't. We have and this is, so the reason this works so well, as Suganthan said, is they already had the authority. A simple change and it jumped up in seconds. We have a client who's a startup furniture company, so they make handmade furniture in the UK, and they're up against some massive competition. They're up against, for anyone who's based in the UK or knows it, they're up against like Oak Furnitureland, Next, Marks and Spencer's. Honestly, it was huge. So we were like, okay, we're not going to rank our product pages, so we need to make our content solid. So we pulled in all of the keywords that, I mean, we scraped everything. We scraped all these big clients. We dumped them into, well, again, not a plug. There's other ones. We dumped them into Keyword Insights, but there are other tools that do the same thing. SERP that does it. Cluster AI does it, and I want to be open about that. There's other tools that do that, but we dumped it all into our tool. And what we found was these large group of clusters, basically, that we used to, we were finding opportunities of what we were looking for was keywords that we thought were transactional or seemed transactional in nature, but that would also trigger blog pages. And the reason this was a quick win, again, was because not only were most of our competitors optimizing towards transactional pages, but if you had, so this is the example, we had this keyword called kitchen island dining table, and under that keyword there's about 50 other keywords that all went under it, all adding up to a lot of volume. And when we were scanning through our Excel sheet and we saw that kitchen island dining table not only had a massive cluster, but also ranked article pages, you're like, okay, this is a quick win. The reason being is, I bet you most competitors are trying to optimize their product pages, so the actual competition for this keyword is going to be low. And more than that, if you can rank just the head cluster keyword, you're going to rank everything, all the modifier versions as well. So we call this like the golden egg. So some iPhone 12 is a good example. If iPhone 12 shows up contextually, let me use a different example. If king size mattresses contextually shows up as in the context shows you that it's transactional, you know you're gonna have to make a page to target king size mattresses and another page to target what is the king size mattress, the informational side as well. Whereas if you've got a keyword that actually looks transactional, but the context is informational, the cluster is going to be bigger. Does that make sense? I'm trying to make it make sense. So kitchen island dining table, that is a transactional keyword in nature, but because it showed up, the context was informational, you're not going to just rank kitchen island dining table. The same article will also rank for all the what's, how's, why's, and guys, if that makes sense. Does that make sense? Hopefully it makes sense. So
yeah.
kitchen island dining table came up as a huge cluster, and I was like, oh shit, this is an informational keyword. Let's spin out an article on the ultimate guide to it. Caveat, I do hate that because the ultimate guides are done to death, but it works, so we did it. And we span up the ultimate guide to kitchen island dining tables, which now when you Google kitchen island dining tables, it ranks number 2.
And outranking Amazon product page.
Yep, and it also ranks for everything to do with it. It ranks for what is it. It ranks for how do you find one. It ranks for, and I've actually included that one, so you can have a look and plug it into Ahrefs if you want. And it just drives them so much traffic. But if you plug grain and frame into Ahrefs, you'll see that. In fact, I think it's here. If you plug it into Ahrefs, you'll see that their traffic growth has been phenomenal over the last. They started a year and a half ago. So their traffic growth has just been massive. And it's because we're focusing on these seemingly transactional keywords, which everyone else is optimizing the wrong thing for, which actually brings that keyword difficulty down because everyone's optimizing the wrong sort of page for it. So there's another example of how you can use this context to find these quick wins. Like look for the keywords you think are going to be transactional and then smash it with content because
I think, Andy, again, same on that example, there's a fragmented intent as well. Like the way we do this as well, we tell you like, okay, 8 of these pages on, for the top 10 results for this keyword are blog posts that we see 2 product pages. So it's a sort of a fragmented, but you'll see sometimes 5, 6, whatever ratio it is.
So what we sometimes show you, and this is the other golden opportunity. So one of the golden opportunities we look for is contextually, let's find a transactional keyword that actually ranks articles because they're quick wins because you can rank so many more keywords for it. The other thing we look for is, okay, what has 5 and 5? Like what has 5 informational and 5 transactional? And then because they're golden wins because we can rank twice. So then we can cover more of like the real estate on the SERPs. So that's the other golden eggs we look for.
Because the cannibalization issue is a thing for most clients afraid of like, hey, are we going to compete with ourselves with if you have a blog post as well as a product page in the same? But it's not the case actually. If you look at the Google SERPs for lots of terms, the internet is actually fragmented. Google's throw in like 5 product pages, 5 articles. What we can do is we can try and rank a blog post at that given time or product page. And for a travel client, what we did was to sort of look at it and say, hey, look, you may want to create a microsite for this term. So they created a microsite play, which is completely outside their domain. And they were able to rank that page as well. So they actually captured more positions.
Yeah. So yeah, the other opportunities we look for, like what's really split. And that's the other thing we wanted to have with this context. Like we don't just want, which actually, I guess, Nick, you said earlier, we don't just want to know, is it commercial or informational? We sometimes want to know which is down the middle. And they're the ones we love because we can rank twice, which is great. And in fact, again, for this furniture company, I can't remember the example we did, but we found some of these intents that were split down the middle, and we don't even have a product for some of them, and we just made a product page to direct them into another product, and we ranked twice for them. So yeah, we've done that as well. And this also indicated, just to plug it in, is how this clustering works as well. Again, there's other tools that do clustering. I'll say it again, there's SERPs, there's Cluster AI, there's these other tools. But with keyword insights will be cluster and pull through the context, and it started to indicate how important it was. So in that example of the kitchen island dining tables, for example, just the sheer amount of other keywords under that cluster was phenomenal, which is why we went after it. So I think I wrote a blog, well, I did write a blog post on it, and I think I used the phrase, mountains can be built out of molehills. Basically, rather than going after the head word, we look for the clusters that are the biggest. So we look for the clusters that are, how we do it is we look for the clusters that we think are, people are optimizing for the wrong intent, just using common sense. Like, we know if it's iPhone 12, we reckon, our hypothesis is, we reckon people are optimizing the wrong page. Generally, we're right, as we proved with Grain and Frame, the furniture company. And then when you look for the biggest clusters, it's how can we capture all of it? So that's why we pull both into it. And like a good example is going the other way is this skateboard tricks. So what we tended to have seen with going down further, first of all, we know, I mean, this is quite an obvious one. We know skateboard tricks is going to be informational, but sometimes you'll be surprised. Skateboard tricks is obviously informational. When we cluster it and pull through the context of it, we can start to see, actually, this one article we've created on skateboard tricks should be broken out into, definitely create a hub piece called skateboard tricks and general overview of it, but break that into how to do a skateboard trick, impossible skate tricks, longboard tricks, and break it into all of them. Wasn't a great example here because obviously we know skateboard tricks is informational, but sometimes you'll see it with seemingly the context of the keyword you think is transactional, put them through a cluster, pull through the context, and you'll see that all this transactional keyword should be broken out into loads of informational articles as well, which is really interesting. So when we do that, when we push through the keyword context, as we call it, the keyword clustering, and we pull through the rank, we actually, so say you scrape your competitor, dump it all into whatever tool you want, but say it's keyword insights, you dump it all into that, you start to pull through, you start to see a bigger overview. Like, you can start to say, okay, this article you've created, say you think this is transactional. I think actually for this skateboard client, it was like 50mm longboard wheels, which seemed to be transactional, because why else would you be Googling that? But it ended up being informational. And then that broke into a load of articles on actually the different size of wheels. You start to go, okay, and it pulls through the rankings. And as you saw with the podcast company, it pulls through the rankings. You can start to go, oh, actually, the reason this product page isn't ranking is because it should be informational. And then you can spin that into a load of 50mm longboard wheel articles when you pull all that through. So summing all that up, when you dump all that in, when you pull through the context rather than the intent, when you pull through the clustering, when you pull through the rank, what is the benefits of it? So, I mean, you can find these content development opportunities. So you can find opportunities where you are trying to rank the wrong page. So like with the mattress company, we were like, okay, well, for them, they actually already had the content, but our advice was like, look, just make that user journey better. But for the furniture company, it was, okay, we found these content opportunities that most people are trying to do the transactional, but we can push them through into something. By the way, they actually sell a lot as well, because we made very sure of the fact that their blog pages link through really well to their product pages.
Product pages, yeah.
Go on there. It's also very good for optimizing site architecture. Again, when you group them together and when you actually pull through the context, you start to map this out on, so we use Lucid, but there's Miro or there's other things. You start to map out your blog section from the beginning and map out how users are going to move from that blog section to your transactional pages, or vice versa. With a podcast company, they basically rely on their informational articles, other than that one product page. And when we clustered them all and pulled through the context, we were able to really accurately map out the definite blogs that people were going to go to. And then the ones that were like 5 and 5 in the keyword context, the ones that had like 5 results that were product and 5 results that were blogs, we were like mapping that journey between the two. And you can map the whole architecture really easily. My intonation there was like, there's going to be more slides. There's not, that's it. So rounding all that up. So intent is usually easily recognized by keyword modifiers, by how, where versus guide. Intent is also really accurately predicted with things like SEMrush and other tools, and it is accurate. But we like to think of things called keyword context, and that was a big part of what we wanted to come through. And what we mean by that is the intent is commercial, but what's actually the contextual setting around this keyword? You saw it with CBD oil. SEMrush is classifying that as commercial, which it is, but we'd write informational. You saw it with a podcast company. SEMrush would classify that as informational. We'd classify that as a product page, which needed to be that free thing, that free podcast recorder thing, whatever it was. So we talk about the contextual setting around that keyword, which going into that, so the intent behind a keyword is often misconstrued as well. So the intent behind iPhone 12 is often thought of as being commercial, whereas actually it's probably more fragmented than that, which is, Nick, what you were alluding to earlier. And by the way, we're not to say that context is better than intent. They're both great, and they should both be used with each other because it forms part of your overall strategy. But by using that keyword context in parallel to clusters and using intent in parallel to clusters, we can quickly find these groups of keywords that should be bundled together and writing content on it, or moving the content and redirecting it to a product page. And then we can use that to basically optimize our architecture as well and plan our content strategy and plan what pages should be created. And then I'll send this to everyone. We've given you tools there that can help you cluster them. So there's obviously Keyword Insights. There's also Cluster AI, SEO Scout. There's also SERP Stat. These are all the tools to help you find keyword intent. You've got SEMrush, you've got Neural Text, there's Content Harmony, there's also Keyword Insights. I haven't put it at the top there because I didn't want to seem too sycophantic, but Keyword Insights is there. And then if you wanted to plan site architecture, we use Lucid ourselves, but you've got Miro and Visual Sitemaps as well. It's just as a little thing there, but that's everything.
That's awesome.
Awesome.
Cheers.
Hell yeah. And considering you had a big night and it's super early for you, mate.
It felt like you didn't take a breather in between. You just went just like that.
You know, this is why, like, you know, both, like, you know, the two of you are such, you know, revered, like, you know, well-respected guys, because, like, you just know your stuff. You test things, and you've got some really, really phenomenal insights. We have had really, really great questions in the chat, and I've cheekily put in some of my own. I feel like, and Saijo, like, if it's okay, maybe I can curate them with maybe something that starts on the basis and then start to evolve, because you've got some really, really, like, you know, just intermediary of, like, you know, how to use these APIs to determine keyword intent, all the way to, you know, then how to cluster them. And then how do you sort of handle intent shifts, and then maybe something specific. So maybe if we can use that as a way to sort of like flowchart out this again. And he's like, oh God, let's go.
I can actually answer that question, Nick. I can answer the question from Manikandan about the case management. I did a bit of search while I saw the question. If you want to start with that, I'm happy to answer that.
Yep,
yeah, let's start with the example, and then let's go maybe deeper into the how.
His question was around whether the keyword that he's trying to target, case management, I'm assuming is in the US. The primary that he said he's working on a SaaS website that he want to rank for, but top 50 results are legal and hospital industry. How can I rank my SaaS URL? The point is very simply, I did a Google quick search on the US, and I realized that most of the results, I mean, there's a Wikipedia article coming up, and there's a thing called, I mean, I don't know what case management is until now. I looked at it, okay, it's they have a case management society of America, and most of the pages they're ranking, you can see the homepage types ranking as like organizations, like with the ORG extension. And most of these are wiki pages and things like that. But you'll see quite a few pages there. So sort of a fragmented intent where Google is going after more authoritative sites for this. I could potentially think this is being in that, you know, your money, your life area where Google's trying to give more authoritative, trustworthy data. But I do see few sites who are like ranking with some informational content, so they're like pretty much trying to answer what is case management. So if you do a Google search, if you look at the results, even the page 2, 3, you will see most of the page ranking are like trying to answer this question mixed with authoritative sites. So you're gonna struggle to rank your SaaS page here, your home URL here, without building authority on it. So there's two ways you can go about it. Either you build authority over time for your page. In order to do that, you need to create lots of articles around this this topic. So build topical authority, and then you will be considered at some point as a authority in this page. Then Google will likely to rank you. Your short-term strategy will be to kind of write an article about what is case management, right? So if you look at the top 10 results, there's a couple of results here. You'll see there's one from Highland.com and one from AIM journals. You'll see they talk about what are the benefits of case management, what is case management, answering the short question. I think this is the way forward for your SaaS business. So if you write an article here, and hopefully people, when they land on that article, you can push them further down your funnel. You hopefully wanted to use your SaaS tool, right? Maybe in the article you can talk about how your SaaS is solving that particular problem with a case management, right? So you could actually plug that in, maybe at the footer, maybe between a CTA, some sort. I think that's probably your way in.
Cool.
Hell yeah. That's awesome. Pretty much everything. Amazing. All right, well, we'll go through next on the chat. Shall we start with how that we do the intent and then the clustering and then the intent shift? Do you want to play it like that?
Yeah, so obviously you can see Peter's question is, so how do we handle it? Basically, when we do it, it's literally a snapshot in that time. So this is what it is now, do it. Not a plug again. Future iterations of our tool will be that you can move a slider and it will show you how it's changed. We have noticed a few people have copied our ideas on that when we've spoken about it, but we won't talk about that.
But I think I got an idea. I think I'm trying to understand what Peter said. So he said a page could be a page level. A page could be a transactional informational. We see this with e-commerce pages where people, SEOs, try to muscle in content into actual product category pages, even product pages. We know, even John said that, I think last year or something, don't do this because you're going to confuse Google. If you add a lot of content to a product page or a product category page, you're going to confuse Google. I know people are actually promoting this as well, like, add content to pages, but I just think that's a bad idea because you're giving mixed signals to Google because Google can't determine. They do pattern detection. They do, when they look at a page type, layout type, they can look at the layout and everything, and they can get confused, right? So you can actually confuse Google whether this is a product page or an informational page. I think adding a little bit of context to a product category page kind of makes sense, but don't, like even Google said that, don't go adding long form articles to product pages. I think that's the answer here. People are doing it. Maybe it works for some people, but probably a long term is probably not the right thing to do.
But yeah, so I guess to answer Peter's question more bluntly, which is how do you handle it over time?
Yeah.
We just look at that snapshot in that time. That's the content we want at that time. Obviously, we don't just leave it there. The way we would handle it is we run it every month. For our clients personally, we would run it every month and check. And that's where, because we pull in the rankings every month as well, we can start to see if it's dropped from 1 to 4, and we see the intent shift, we can easily see it. But yeah, at the moment, it's literally a snapshot in that time on that day of whatever that is. There's got to be a fair amount of common sense has to be employed. I think, Nick, you said it perfectly earlier. Don't just blindly follow tools. Don't blindly follow our tool. Don't blindly follow SEMrush. Don't blindly follow any of them. I think in Peter's question, he mentions seasonal shifts. If I see Black Friday in my keyword cluster and it says informational, I've got to exercise some amount of common sense to go. I know that's not going to be the case on November. I don't even know when Black Friday is, but I know that's not going to be the case. So to answer your question, we run it every month just to make sure and pull in the rankings to make sure nothing's going on. I think if you're doing keyword research for e-commerce stores, particularly seasonal ones like maybe card companies or Valentine's companies, you've still got to exercise common sense. Like Nick said before we even went into this presentation, manually, you've still got to check the SERPs. I don't think any tool will ever, truly work that out, or it shouldn't do really. Like, exercise some common sense.
But also to answer that question about Peter's question about iPhone 13, I think you make a valid point about that. I think again, it depends on the site that you're optimizing. So you're let's just say you're a news site, right? You may want to talk about if it's iPhone 13, probably before iPhone 13 was released. Now it's iPhone 14, right? Before it's released, people are going to search for iPhone 14, right? People are going to speculate rumors. People are going to search for, hey, what are the new features in the iPhone 14 upcoming? So it makes sense. It's a time-sensitive thing. So you probably, if you're Forbes, you probably put an article saying, Forbes does it all the time. So you could put an article out saying, hey, iPhone 14 rumors, and with a kind of a clickbaity title saying, you won't believe what they're coming up next year, right? They're going to have satellite capabilities or whatever. I think it's time sensitive. Once that's done, I mean, Forbes, they're in the business of not selling fonts, right? So they're not going to have a product page. They're just going to capture the moment with that traffic. It's going to be mainly to click ads or people, click ads on their news site. But if you're a company that sells, if you're the, Free Network or whatever, you want to sell the iPhone 14, you could probably produce that rumor article at the beginning. And then when the iPhone 14 release, you'll probably be optimizing the hell out of your actual product page. So time sensitive.
Yeah, one of the things that very similar, exactly the same concepts, and maybe I'm just like giving out some ideas here, but like a countdown calendar, and just to be added to the list of like a subscription. So like when PS5 was getting launched, obviously it wasn't everywhere, and it was like a highly sought after thing. So it did suggest to a client like let's put a countdown calendar on it. And let's get generate that kind of interest, and you can capture emails and be able to have like an EDM sort of mail out as things are going on, and perfect time to capture pre-sale before even they even got the go ahead to get the pre-sale. Like they knew they were going to get the products, they just didn't know how much or when or anything like that. And I was like, well, there's you can see the trend going up. Like let's just capitalize on that interest and use your authority and get something in there. They didn't do it, but anyway, sorry, I'm sour about that they didn't do it because anyway, doesn't matter. I'm gonna rant about a client. Anyway, next question is actually mine. So how do these APIs actually determine the keyword intent? I think maybe the comments I had even before we started this whole thing is I'm building out a marketplace, and of course it doesn't exist yet. So a lot of the keyword research that we're doing is very much going after and checking the keywords before we sort of say these are the kinds of transactional intent for this whole vertical that we're about to create, and they're going to go after and source the products and make it. It's a fucking cool project. I'll keep you in the loop maybe after this, but one of the things that as soon as Semrush announced it, I was like, well, this is fascinating. I just basically did a keyword dump, put all of my keywords in there, and then was kind of informational for dog treats. What? And even going in there, 90% of it was all transactional, and there was maybe 2 results for for blogs, and I was like, is this why? It just seemed a little bit sorry, there's some noises and no one else is in the office, so I'm kind of who's here? It kind of threw me off, and I was like, well, if we're going to go and do this, maybe this is the first iteration. It's just got out of beta, and maybe your tool will be really cool. So that's again why I was just check the SERPs, use common sense. But sorry.
So is your question, how do we get that? So everything we do is based on like I said, it's a snapshot at the time. So when you dump your keywords in, we'll scrape Google at that exact point. Again, Suganthan and I think we've made a whole, hopefully, business out of being transparent. It's a pre-trained model, so we've trained the model, which took a long time, which is why we've only got English and what's the other one? German at the moment, is it?
German. Chairman.
We're going to have more because we've got to manually tag the data. We've got to manually
Manually automated tagging of the data.
train it, and it's based on the results that we've scraped. So at the moment, the models is good. It's very good for e-commerce stores. Really good for working out what articles are. It's not so good at the moment for like job websites. So at the moment, if you plugged a load of jobs in, whatever, it would classify it as other. Interestingly, so here's an interesting quirk that we found recently. When we train the model, because in the example of the affiliate sites, what it was looking for, because we can look at why the machine has made the decision it has. And we had a client who used keyword context and said, yeah, your intent is just bollocks to it. And basically it was a travel website, and all the things that ranked were Spanish holidays 2021, Barcelona holidays 2021, all these travel things. But all of them had a date in it. It's like best Spanish. It wasn't best. Well, it was Spanish holidays 2021. But when you clicked on it, it was very obviously a product page. When you clicked on it, it was like buying a holiday. And Suganthan and I will be the first to admit the intent, the context that our tool flagged that was incorrect. It classified them all as blog pages when actually they should have been product pages. The reason was our model was looking for dates and numbers in the title because it had weighted far too much on that, because generally blogs have like best mattresses 2021,
top 20 things to
top
do.
20 this. So our model was giving too much weight to the numbers.
And numbers,
So we tweaked it, and that's fixed. But there'll be plenty more examples as more people use it, and we get more use cases where that does happen. So
some tools, Sandy, right? They use features to detect intent. They look at the features like feature snippet. They see a PA box.
Yeah.
If they see a PA box, they assign that to information automatically.
And we don't want to do that. We want to literally look at it, which is why our context is different to how the intent models work. But it's being completely transparent. There are edge cases where that holiday is an example where the results will be too weighted on a machine learned decision. So it's not an API. We scrape it and it runs through a model that we've trained, basically, if that answers your question.
And the model constantly learns. So what happened was when we launched it, the accuracy level wasn't that amazing. But as with more customers and clients start running more keywords, as they run, the model learns itself. We can see every time someone runs, we can kind of go in and correct the data. And so the machine learning model learns it in the next iteration, it can correct itself. So we'll go and tweak few things here and there. I mean, to answer the question, Peter, it's extremely hard, as Andy said. It is quite hard. It's quite a difficult problem to solve. I think we're getting there, but I don't think we can claim we've solved it 100%. It's always going to be edge cases.
Yeah, and if I learned anything from a minute of engineering, there's no such thing as a 100% efficient system. But I think why I asked this question particularly was mind blank, but sorry, there's word lift. Oh my god.
Andreas.
Yes, Andreas Volpini, amazing guy, and super intelligent as well. Of course, word lift and a lot of their passion projects that they spin out as from that. He was doing something really, really similar with creating an intent modeler. And the way that they used it, again, very, very similar, using intelligent language models with they actually use BERT because it is a neural network architecture. It's open source, and they can sort of take that and be able to reverse engineer that a little bit, which I found was super, super interesting. So again, that was why I was well, it all kind of needs to start from a base of something. With machine learning, you set the parameters, you give the rules, and then it goes forth, and then it understands, and it does it without any bias or anything like that. That's why that they're there and they're used. So it is a very, very hard thing to do, particularly without millions of dollars and a whole team of resources. So yeah, it just worked fascinating, just super fascinating.
One example, Nick, as well. I mean, on the context of this call, I think Money condensed example earlier about case management. So if you search case management right now in the US, you'll see a local map pack, right? Now, if you're relying on that as a SERP data, right? If you're a SERP feature to detect the intent, they have a local map pack. It just tells you nothing. So Money's website, as you said, his client side is a SaaS website, right? He's just what he's going to do with that data, a local map pack. As a local intent. It's not actually a local intent. Google is just throwing that in for the local users. They might be interested in going to one of these centers, right? So if they're a SaaS business, they can't do anything about it. So that kind of output gives you no value to it. And if you use that information to detect the intent, it's the wrong way about going about it. That's why we don't use SERP features.
Yeah. Okay. That's awesome. Yeah. Thank you.
No problem.
Yeah. Next question. How do you classify a page by intent?
I answered this question, Nick.
Yeah. Sorry. Okay.
I think maybe we can go into the clustering.
Yes, which is actually your question that I think you just put in.
Just put it in the private chats. I'll just go to the question. So basically,
Please.
I'm guessing when you want to do clustering in your tool, you bring in a lot of keywords. I'm guessing you take a dump of your competitors' keywords, kind of put it all together, and then the tool does the initial clustering, right? So with the example of maybe we can use a skateboard example. So you put all the keywords in, and then the tool clusters it into how to skateboard, difficult skateboard tricks and all that. So how does it exactly do that? So can you touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, so when you plug all the keywords in, and again, it's a tool, it's a feature we're going to introduce slowly, is where you can actually set how strict the clustering is. But at the moment, if a keyword shares 40% of the SERPs with another keyword, it gets in a cluster. So if you've got 5 keywords in a cluster, what we're saying is at least 4 results in the top 10 rank for these 5 keywords. So with a pretty high degree of confidence, you can say I can target all of these on one page. We get, interestingly, one of the biggest complaints we get is when they run a load of keywords through the tool and a load of them come out as a no cluster. Basically, we get a big chunk of them. And Ian Howells actually did a great review, and he looks at it as a positive thing rather than a negative of basically, if you've got all these keywords in no cluster, it means one of two things. It means that you've stumbled upon a keyword that actually is really focused and you need a whole article around that keyword, or actually you need to do more keyword research around this keyword to really identify what other keywords you could be targeting around this. So that's how it works. Basically, does it share 40% of the SERP with another one? And if it does, we'll put it in a cluster. What we see two interesting things. First of all, we see actually sometimes, interestingly, we see all the keywords you can target on one blog, and that's a gold mine. The example I gave was that kitchen island dining table. The sheer amount of keywords under that cluster just made that a massive win. I think it drives so much traffic, that one. We also sometimes see really surprising results where an example was with that same vape client. If you type in vape accessories and vape parts, every vape client I know tries to target those 2 keywords on the same page. I mean, why wouldn't you? Vape parts and vape accessories, surely it's the same thing, right? But our tool, and this is when we actually first thought it was broken, it flagged vape parts and vape accessories in 2 very different clusters. And so we were like, well, when we actually search them, they give you 2 very different results. So we were like, well, look, every single other person is either trying to target vape parts or vape accessories on the same page. Just split them into 2 and you can capture both, which is what happened. So yeah, we see very interesting patterns that way as well. And this is why sometimes I honestly think we give Google too much credit, because it is the same thing. It's just, and we hear a leader posted a really interesting Twitter status recently. It was like, what's one SEO tactic that you've implemented which everyone says you shouldn't do? And my answer was this idea of gateway pages. Everyone says you shouldn't make a gateway page. Vape parts and vape accessories, to be honest, it's exactly the same thing. We've made the same page for two. We've just targeted one keyword with one and one keyword with the other. It's against every single SEO rule in the world because it is a gateway page. But, we're playing in Google's universe, so just do it for now. You're not going to get penalized for it. And until it's clever enough to work out it's the same thing, then you merge them back together. But that was a good example that what I gave later was that you sometimes see surprising results, and we give Google too much credit, I think. But yeah, we've implemented that. I went off on a rant there, and my voice.
It's actually good. One additional question based on that. So say you've got 2 keywords, and how do you kind of pick which is the cluster? So I'm guessing there are 2 with the key skateboard example. Let's go with that. So there will be a group of keywords that kind of will be grouped into a cluster. So do you pick the keyword with the most volume as the parent kind of thing? Okay.
Yeah. A keyword with the most volume gets the head topic. If you don't put volume, it's just alphabetical. It's
a similar thing with the Ahrefs. They use that parent topic. They kind of similar play.
Yep. Cool. That was it. That answered. Yeah.
Yeah, just the
It's funny, sometimes when I'm looking at 2 different keywords with very, very similar intent, sometimes I'll just put it into Google Trends and just be like, which one is more popular, and just be like, cool, that one, bang.
Yeah.
Fascinating. We'll go to Dan's question. So Bernard at Hope is a fan of a ranch method, where he looks at the SERPs, digests the intent, and tries to align the topic, meta description, metas to provide something different to what already is represented.
So Suganthan and I are very good friends with Barnard. We've had a lot of conversations with him. I haven't actually heard about this, so I don't fully understand the context around it. I assume what he means is because you can't fight the intent. So if you're aligning a meta that's completely against the intent, that won't happen. So I can't imagine Arnold means that. So what I assume he means is something similar to what Saijo was saying earlier, where so all these long ones and he just goes for a short one. Is that what you would understand it to mean?
I think, Andy, he's talking more around the results diversification. So Google tried to give you a bit more diverse results. I mean, you can see that now if you search for a brand. A couple of years back, if you search for a brand, you will see the brand website, brand Facebook page, brand social media, I don't know, Crunchbase, LinkedIn, probably Knowledge Graph or whatever. You see all of them brand related, maybe a review page from Trustpilot. What's happening now is Google's kind of shifted things around. So if you search for a brand, you will see some negative article about that brand that happened 10 years ago, right? That's still on page 1. So Google's trying to kind of diversify the results. I think this is where, I think it's probably what Bernard is saying. But I think what Daniel's just saying is probably the next step, Andy. I think what we do is sort of do the intent and context-wise. I think what Daniel is saying is, okay, after you do that, would you provide a different angle to that topic, right? So it's the question of case management that we were talking today. Can you provide, can you write something unique about, case management, right? So, but to me, I think, yes, you can, but it totally depends on Google's, because why would Google, if they determine that this query need to be answered in a certain way, you could probably answer in a different way, but you still have to match, as Andy said, you can't fight the intent. You just, just because you write something unique and different doesn't mean you deserve that spot. Maybe, but I guess it depends answer.
Yeah, so I think that's what it is. It could be for example, you search for something and you see your traditional results and image, and then nobody's doing video around it. And then you could do video content around it. And then maybe that intent wasn't satisfied before. And then because now there's a video content that you've done, there's a chance that might come up. It might not work in all cases, I guess, but yeah.
Yeah, I think it's case by case. You're probably going to have to look at this. Like, we know for a fact that we can sort of manipulate Google into showing this data. So, like, for example, I think that's a great example, Saijo, you just mentioned about video. So there are like terms if you do sort of how to do certain things, right? Like, let's just take recipes out. Let's just talk about something else, like how to fix something, right? How to fix a broken iPhone screen, right? If you, for that keyword, if Google's not already showing a YouTube video, because Google can't find anything related to that, I'm sure there's many. That's an
Shout
example.
out tinkering.
If you don't see it, you could potentially create a YouTube video, and then Google will likely to show that as well, because when they're trying to answer that question, right? They're trying to answer that user's intent. They're trying to match the user's intent, maybe in a visual. Users may be looking for a visual way, so they're diversifying the results in a way. Visual image carousels, that's one of the whole reason why they have all these SERP features. It's diversification of results.
So web stories, short video, all those kind of things that can, like, it's not traditionally kind of ranking it, but you get like a slot in like the first page. So like, why not take it?
Even the PA boxes, like the short answers, Nick, you talked a little bit about the passage. We call it passage ranking now. It's no longer indexing. Right? So on the passage ranking model, what Google's trying to do, they're trying to give, they're looking at pages that doesn't really deserve to be on top first page, but they have some content that deserve that ranking. That's probably one of the reasons why they're using passage indexing to, just grab that bit from an article from page 2 or whatever, and then trying to, give that little bit of prominence. So PA boxes, especially, a lot of people don't do this stuff. I'm a big fan of PA boxes. I'm a big fan of PA boxes, and trying to capture the clients. Trying to see if I can get a client's answers in the PA boxes. Right? Can we capture those? And those are not difficult to do.
Yeah, I think that's a really good segue into Dan's next question, which is, okay, so now you sort of figured out the intent. You have a good idea of what it is, but now you have to explain it to another person that, doesn't have all of this information up in your brain ready to basically just go now and be like, oh, cool. So actually explaining this, like what are some ways that you sort of work with, like, other people to create this?
Sorry, say that again. Like, what do you mean?
So I think like he's asking about, like, so once you kind of figure out like this is like, an article will kind of satisfy that particular intent, what kind of like prompts do you give your writer to kind of
like a brief generation, Andy? I think we talked about.
I think so.
Yeah.
Right. So the way I look at it, I don't know if this will answer your question. Suganthan and I did this to plug a gap that. So our workflow works like this. We do keyword research, and the tools for that are Ahrefs, SEMrush, Search Console, those ones. And then the other side of that is the end of that workflow was you've got ClearScope, use topic, content harmony, making the briefs. What we struggled with was, and why we even made this, was that middle part. So our content flow works like this. We'll do the keyword research using Ahrefs, SEMrush, and these things. We'll pull all them in. Then we'll dump them into Keyword Insights, and we actually have another internal tool, which we basically only license to agencies. But we dump them into that, and it makes sense of that data, and we can broadly work out the intent and the clusters of keywords. And then we feed those things into something like ClearScope, Content Harmony, Use Topic, Phrase.io, and then we do the briefs. So. Does that answer the question? We
can see. I think when we look at the clusters as well, right? So when we start like going through the clusters, so usually our clusters we pivot them in a Google Sheet, and we pivot them. We sort by traffic, right? So if you look at search volume, you will see as we go down the cluster, you will see lots of like long tails, and so with less search volume. But that will kind of give you an indication what should be included in an article. So if you're talking about CBD oil, right? So your cluster will contain best CBD oil, how to use CBD oil, is CBD oil safe, blah, 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 health benefit or whatever. When we see that, we could easily see, okay, for this article, we want to actually cover all of these aspects. So when we do content briefing internally for our clients, we have someone who's kind of go through that data, who's trained, and will put together a detailed brief.
The other thing is, and this is sort of going off topic, and it's actually going to be, again, in a future iteration of our tool, topic clusters and hub content and spoke content is all the rage. Like, everyone's speaking about it. And what most guides tell you, I think, is incorrect. Most guides tell you to come up with your overarching topic and then write all the things about it. We don't do that. What we do is we plug them all. So the skateboard tricks is a great example, actually. When we stick all this massive amount of keywords in and it clusters them, we're scanning down and we're seeing, okay, there's a load of different clusters around skateboard tricks. There's how to do it, difficult, whatever. We go up the other way. We go, okay, these are going to be all our spoke content, and we want one content to house it all. So we would still write a guide, the ultimate, I hate the word, but it works, the ultimate guide to skateboard tricks, where we would talk about all these different things very, very briefly, and then we'd link out to all the clusters that have been apparent in our thing. So I guess what I'm saying is all the guides that tell you to come up with your hub content and then come up with the spokes, I don't think that's right. We go the other way. We find all the spokes based on the clusters and then write a massive piece to house it all. Is how we would go.
I think a lot of tools, what they do, like ClearScope, Container, I think they do entity extraction on the top. I think I'm not sure if ClearScope uses 30 top 30 results, so they will scrape the top 10, top 30 results for a given keyword, and they will extract entities, and then they will work out the semantic relevance and give it a score and say, hey, if you want to write about CBD oil, you may want to mention CBD oil, I don't know, 3 times, or best use of CBD oil 2 times. So most of these tools, they use the semantic play with the entity extraction, but we kind of go the other way, as Andy just explained.
Yeah, love it. Do you sort of maybe just to tack onto that, do you sort of like house all this in like in an Excel spreadsheet and sort of be like, okay, well, let's now start to schedule this out. Let's start to work on this, and that will then branch out.
It's not very sexy at the moment, but that's exactly what we do. So we would look on one spreadsheet and add them to the other one.
Yeah.
If everyone wants all that features, it's on the roadmap. We just need more subscribers. But
shameless plug there. Okay.
Subscribe, hit the notification bell.
we have a huge like Trello board with stuff, and that's one of them. Like, we want to be able to click and add them to a content roadmap and have it all sexy. But it's just a bootstrap, me and little old Suganthan. It's just I called you old then, mate. Sorry. I look older than you as well, even though I'm quite a bit younger. It's not sexy at the moment. We would just be scanning down the spreadsheet and adding them to it, as you said.
Yeah, it's funny, because I love when I do have a bit of time, which is hard to find these days. But testing tools are so much fun. One thing that I've always kind of wanted to see was, okay, we've got clusters of keywords. We've got keywords. We're better at we're working towards clustering them, and that's all really, really great. Now, what about something that now starts to automate what that would look like from like a flowchart kind of way, and we'll start to build those out. And let's have it have all those internal link suggestions before we even have to make them. Why not actually build something that is like a 3D model that is just starting to make all of these connections and be able to dynamically make them for us. And then we basically just delete out things that don't make sense, or either the client just doesn't have as far as product lines. And I'm going forward with like this marketplace project. I just wish that it existed, because I'm doing all of this manually, all of it in a really unsexy, Excel spreadsheet. And it's just, if it exists, please let me know. Oh my God.
I think it's difficult to do. I mean, what a lot of people don't realize how difficult it is, sort of even building tools, even the simplest form of SaaS tool, it's a lot of work. Yeah. I mean, even building part is not even difficult. I think the validation and the accuracy, that's the trickier part. We do a lot of testing, like internally when we are not happy with the result, we continue to search and we try to tweak it, make sure the results are accurate. We'd rather make a tool that's more accurate rather than have a lot of fancy features. Even our UX need a sort of work that's being worked on right now. So I know some people can be, your UX is not the best, but we're still working on the things like that. As I think Andy also likes the fact that, we are very keen on making sure the data accuracy. But to answer your question, Nick, that's going to be a bit difficult. But all doable.
I know.
All doable,
like
all
everyone
doable.
that I meet.
Yeah, all doable.
Yeah,
it's the cost and the resources and the time.
I'm just trying to put the ideas out there, and maybe one day someone will make them, or just be like, yeah, someone has already done that, and here it is. I'm just putting the intent out into the ether and hoping that there will be something that will result. And even Peter's doing it as well, like a feature request to check a URL and have the page intent. Want to run a crawl through the intent check? I mean,
it's a great question. That's still in the works.
Yeah.
Peter. Well, soon, yeah. We got. This is something. Greg, what's his name? Greg Barnard, his name. He's been a big fan of our tool, and he does a lot of Python work. And one of the things Greg said to me as well when he said it, so you can make it so automatically checks the intent to make sure if our page aligns with the intent. Now the problem with that, it's not that easy to do. It's something we've been working on, and it's difficult to do. Good question, Peter.
I love that. Yeah.
Maybe you guys can integrate with tools that does that. So phrase and stuff like that. Like maybe you can have a button that kind of imports it into the those kind of tools. So you could work something out that way, perhaps.
It's actually something we've been speaking to Barnard about a little bit. So watch the space.
Oh yeah.
So,
this is as wide as my eyes are going to get, but they're wide.
I've got a hard stop in about 5 minutes just to be.
Yeah.
I just wanted to. So if there's any more questions that I can answer that Suganthan can't, then that'd be amazing.
Nothing.
There's just one last question from you, Saijo. Actually.
So I've got one. I don't know who can answer it, but either one of you can pick it, I guess. So is there any point where you kind of decide this cluster is too big, we need to kind of split it out again, or is that always whatever this tool splits out, you're confident you can kind of go with that as the main cluster? I don't know if that kind of explains it properly.
Yeah, no, I guess it would defeat the point of the cluster. The point of the cluster is we're confident that all these keywords can be targeted on one page. Again, there are some use cases some edge cases where we see really weird. I guess some example. I think in the skateboard one, we saw it again when it gets to product pages where we had a cluster that had 50 mil wheels, 20 mil wheels, and 30 mil wheels all in one. And obviously you can't create a page that's 50, 20, 30. We just know that it's such a tiny page that perhaps competitors haven't actually cottoned on to the fact that. So how I would interpret that is if I saw a cluster and under it was 50 millimeter longboard wheels, and in that cluster was 20, 30, 40, 50 millimeter wheels.
Yep.
The way I'd interpret that is actually competitors haven't cottoned on to the fact that, people actually Google for a very specific size, and you should break this out. So what Google's showing you is all the Shopify results that are just longboard wheels. There are edge cases like that you do see, but I think generally speaking, and this is actually one of the arguments against us. I talked about earlier, we're introducing this feature where you can actually choose how strong you want the cluster.
Cool.
Yeah, you're going to be able to put a slider, but it's sort of an argument against it because users who aren't really, I guess,
savvy, sort of tech savvy, they're probably
they might end up getting results that don't. So we've chosen 40% as we found that is a good compromise, but someone then slides it too far the other way, and I'm anticipating opening up a can of worms because ours is based on a credit system, right? So you can imagine them sliding it to 10 and getting shitty results and then going, oh, no, we want it back, but we want all the credits back to go to. We don't really know how that's going to be handled yet. Maybe you see a little preview of what it'll be like before you choose. We don't know. That's one of the arguments against us choosing that. But I guess to answer your question bluntly, or to sum that up, Saijo, is, we, generally speaking, it would invalidate the point of clusters if you want to break a cluster up that we've clustered, if that makes sense.
Yep. Excellent. So I think, that's everything. Thanks for taking the time. This has been excellent. And kind kind of sharing your thoughts and your ideas on how it's all done. And I'm sure it's been eye-opening for a lot of people who are listening. So yeah, thank you.
No,
Thank you guys
very
love
much
going
for
through
having
these
us.
deep dives. These deep dives, like going through the news and then going through something that I think can be glazed over, or we can be so granular with keyword intent. And I just love that you guys were yeah, let's all have a chat and let's wake up super early and get into it. Thank you so much again for your time and for sharing your expertise with us and our audience. As a final thing, can you please, if anyone wants to find your tools, if anyone wants to shout out to you, how's best to be able to find you? I'll start off with you, Andy.
So I'm on Twitter, and actually, ironically, I'm Digital Quokka, and the reason being is I love quokkas, which is an Australian animal native to Perth. So that's, you'll find me there if no one knows what a quokka is. It used to be my business name. It used to be Digital Quokka, and then when I was trying to tell people my email address, the amount of times I had to spell it, I just gave up on it. Yeah. So yeah,
Amazing.
Digital Quokka on Twitter.
You can find me Suganthan MN, my handle on Twitter. I'm mostly on Twitter and LinkedIn a little bit. So yeah. And you can find keywordinsights.ai, that's our tool, and snippet.digital, which is our SEO agency.
Amazing.
Awesome.
And of course, if you really, really love the news portion of this, I highly encourage you guys to subscribe to TLDR Marketing. Saijo, where's the best place to do that?
TLDRmarketing.com. That would be the best place to do that.
Too easy. And of course, Saijo's on Twitter as well,
Nick.
and always tweeting some great stuff. All the links are in the description below. Thank you so much again, guys. On our next one, for our December SEO Collective, we're going to be having a roundtable of all of the SEO Collective, board peeps. So basically, it's going to be myself. It's going to, actually, we're not going to list it because we haven't finalized exactly who's going to do it. But, of course, we have some amazing people that are part of our board. If you want to check that out, seocollective.org. We have that website there and open for you to be able to see. But, Peter Mead, Peter Machinkovic, Saijo, Peter Mead. Wait, I heard it's been a long day. Sorry, guys.
It's a long night.
James Pomodoros, Paul Glynn, Dan Wild, and of course, Chris Burgess, Pam Migo. We've got a really, really
So there are a lot of people there. You usually just see us both and at times Peter.
Bye. Sorry. Thank you very much for
having me.
Andy. Cheers all.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.
Thank you, Andy. So yeah, you usually only see a couple of us kind of in the videos, but there are a lot of great people working in the background to kind of make this happen. So yeah.
So it's going to be the whole Christmas thing, and that's going to be on the lineup for December. So the general idea is a panel of a wrap up of 2021, all the things that have happened across the news and SERP changes, algorithm updates, all the like, and of course. We're all very much on the tools, so it's going to be a really nice little, a look back. And of course, it wouldn't be right to do that without looking forward. So for 2022, what we think is going to happen, and of course, it's going to be for both the SEO and the PPC space, because we're a ragtag bunch of of people, and it's it's
sounds like it's social media.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Social media as well. I always forget about that one, as you can probably see with my lack of posting. But that is on the cards next for December. So thank you, everyone. Please like, subscribe,
thank you.
hit the notification bell, and find these two legends and Andy as well on Twitter.
Bye-bye.
See you guys.
Yeah.